again. Welcome to ManchTalk. I'm Tammy Simmons.
And I'm Carla Garrick.
We're glad you're tuning in. Last week we were so excited to say it was warm out. Yeah, today it's miserable. Just so you know, it's rainy, it's cold, it's dank. It did not snow at my house, so I'm okay with that.
I did see photos on social media.
See photos of snow. And I
dug out my snow boots.
Little plants. I bought a bunch of little vegetables and stuff, and I tucked them under my deck because
I brought in the 2 we didn't plant this weekend, but we had gone to the Amherst plant sale. Loaded in those plants.
Picture. That was awesome.
Planted 27 of them on Saturday, which was gorgeous. Yeah. And so I was like, please don't snow.
Yeah. And they'd probably be fine, but it's like, I thought about that.
Yeah.
I'm buying mine this week. There's 2 plant sales this coming weekend. If you're watching this on replay, don't go there if it's after the weekend. On Saturday, the 18th, there is 8 o'clock in Goffstown, which I didn't realize. And then at 9 o'clock is the Bedford plant sale. So if you didn't get a chance to get out to Amherst last week, you can go to Goffstown or Bedford this Saturday and get some good plants.
And I want to compliment you because all your advice was very good. Remember, you told me just drive straight to the front; you'll find parking. Yeah. So I mean, there were a ton of cars.
Because people get scared and they start parking far away, and nobody's ever, and the person up front leaves, and there's always a spot.
We found the perfect spot right there. The one thing I wasn't prepared for is everyone brings like trolleys and these things. So Louie and I just kind of like ran and we made a pile of hostas, and I guarded them very actively while he went and grabbed other stuff. So
I noticed that they do. They bring the whole wagons and thing. And I'm like, I don't really have a wagon I can bring. I do know at Bedford they will give you like a personal. They'll give you a spot
shopper.
And they'll make sure that they don't take your plants.
Nice.
So that's kind of cool.
And then, it was wonderful. They had the gardening ladies there. Yeah. The one lady was very skeptical towards the end. She was like, did you pay for these, or are you just kind of loading these random plants into your car? And thank goodness, because when we went to pay, she was like, oh, you're all set. And I was like, don't I need something
to say I paid?
So they give you like a little plant stick that says paid. And this very strict lady was like, yes, actually, I would like to see your... So I had to go like dig it out the car, but
Carla's absconding hostile. Oh, no. Yeah. That's funny. I was glad to see your... The picture of your car is usually what my car looks like, and I don't think I'm bringing Dan with me this weekend, so it might be a bad thing.
Yeah, I have right to know this weekend, so...
That's good. Well, you got left. Take a break. You can go to the Goffstown, the animal shelter on Dunbarton Road. That's June 1st, so there's plenty. True. Weather's miserable. Good things from my opinion and from our opinion this week. Governor Sununu vetoed the income tax, that the bill that was going to institute an income tax in New Hampshire, and it continues to boggle my mind how anyone can say that a percentage of your wages is not an income tax.
A tax on your wages that is mandatory, that everyone has to pay, is an income tax.
Right. Like and then the argument back is, well, what about the unemployment insurance? And I'm like, well, that's really a tax too, but that one's water under the bridge. That doesn't mean it gives us a right to do more.
Right. Fine. If we want to talk about rolling that back, that's a conversation.
I always I don't know. They're like, well, you don't consider that a tax. I'm like, yeah, actually, I do think that's a tax.
Of course it is.
But they, a couple arguments that people push back because people think they've I don't know if they've read the bill or whatever. They were like, well, isn't there something in the bill to opt out? And I'm like, no, not in this bill. There was an option that if an employer had an already paid leave plan that met the criteria that this required, they didn't have to do it. But that's not up to me to decide what my employer is going to do. And a good point that a lot of people brought up is this was really restrictive. Not only was it an income tax, but, some employers, their employees and their employer might think that there's other benefits that they would rather have. They might want a better health insurance plan or a lower deductible, or they might want more flexibility to be able to work from home, or who knows what. For the government...
Oh, you mean freedom to choose to do what they want.
For the government to say everybody must have this state run.
Yes.
Very poorly planned, probably not sustainable, and we're going to give a commissioner the ability to raise that tax rate without legislative approval. I'm like, what is wrong? Are you people nuts?
And let's not forget, last year when it got introduced for the first time, between the start of when they looked at the bill and it was submitted to the end, that commissioner had already raised the rate 2% before anything had even happened.
A half of a percent doesn't sound like a lot, but it's opening the door to bigger, more and more lower rates and whatnot.
And of course we know. I mean, history teaches us that once you open that up,
you can't get it back.
You won't get it back.
Unemployment. I mean, unemployment insurance. We call it insurance because it makes us feel better. You're never going to roll that back. No. I'm not saying that unemployment benefits aren't a good safety net, but you're never getting it back. So thank you, Governor Sununu, for vetoing an income tax, for calling it what it is. I did love that he actually wrote no income tax, not now, not ever, right on the bill.
Yep.
So good for him.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. We have to work hard to preserve the New Hampshire advantage. And actually, Kathy Sullivan from, the former chair of the Democratic Party had an essay in today's Union Leader where she talks about it and says, but this veto is not in the best interest of New Hampshire because it's going to stop families from moving here. And I just want to say categorically, I don't know about you, but I know that most people, when they're looking at where they might want to move to, are probably not going to be in the weeds of that sort of level of minutia. No,
they're not going to be like, well, I'm not moving to that state because they don't have paid family leave, mandatory paid family leave.
But what people will look at is the rankings of the state, whether there's a personal income tax. I mean, we know basically we lose people in New Hampshire to Florida because that's one of the few other states where there's no personal income tax, right? And they have a little more sunshine.
A little bit.
So, I think that's a canard. That's just nonsense. People aren't looking at that. Right. People will look at your quality of living. And of course, we know here in New Hampshire, we have a high quality of living. Why is that? Because our government is small and lives within its means. You can't keep giving stuff away and expecting a healthy, productive society.
No, you can't. It just doesn't, and I'm tired of people trying to make me out to be an ogre because I don't believe in giving away more free stuff. And it's not that I don't care. It's just that.
But, I've been thinking about this with the free stuff. People seem out of balance, right, and out of whack. And so we hear a lot, from the college students and people saying, we just need, like, this little bit of help. We just need. And my question actually then is, for what?
Right.
What are you going to do when you have your universal basic income that's so awesome and so incredible that you can't be doing it right now? Because the thing that, business people and strivers and people have in common is they don't let stuff hold you back.
Right.
I mean, these businesses start in garages in their parents' homes. It's not like, there's no, I was rich to start with and here I went. It's just the desire to get things done.
Right.
So stop the excuses.
Well, and I just don't believe, I get very frustrated. One of my pet peeves is when people say that there's people starving in our country. And there's literally nobody starving to death in our country because if you're starving, we give away so much food, it's not funny. And we are a gluttonous society to start with, so half of us could probably not eat for a month and not starve.
Right. I forget if I said it on this show or on one of my podcasts, but, I watched a documentary on meth addicts in the Appalachians or in somewhere, and they were all fat.
Right. How is that?
And I was like, how?
That's a lot of food.
So.
So I get that, people who say, like, make it sound like somebody's got to fix something to make it better for them. And I'm like, that's not how it works. Right now I would say I'm in the most prosperous slice of my life. I'm also not 22 years old. I wasn't the most prosperous person at 22. I was the most prosperous person at 32. But I worked multiple jobs. I changed careers. I moved from state to state. I did things to improve my life because eventually I wanted to be in a better place. If you're not willing to do it for yourself, having somebody else pay to do it isn't going to get you there.
Right. And this actually reminds me of, the other big drama out of Concord is the students with the poll tax for the voting rights and all of that, right? So I guess a bunch of them got arrested.
I don't know what they got arrested, how they got arrested. I think they went
disorderly.
And they wouldn't leave.
So fine, and I'm all for a little bit of civ dis. I think that's good. If they understood that was what was going to happen. But for me, I'm like, okay, two things. First of all, it's nonsense, the narrative coming from the Democrats. This is not something that, basically, this law puts us in line with other states.
Right.
So all the national people who are like, we are disenfranchising the children and the students of New Hampshire.
Well, they said that Kamala Harris, her state doesn't even allow people to register to vote
on the same day.
And Yeah.
So this whole narrative is genuinely nonsense, right? But the flip side of that is, hey, you know what, college students?
You're a college student. Figure
You
it out.
don't know, but
You don't live here.
Responsibilities come. Your rights come with responsibilities, and if you want to vote in New Hampshire,
then become a New Hampshire resident. There's things.
Because you know what? I have to register my car.
I was going to say, because quite honestly, it's not the students who are being taxed
in a special way.
We're all of us. I'm being forced to register my vehicle and get my driver's license here, but that special group of people over there don't have to because they're college students.
Right. And so nope. Sorry, you know what? The basis of this country and what the Constitution was founded on is equality under the law.
Right.
So we for 200 years we have been creating all these different categories of situations, and social justice basically is we're at the stage where we're treating people unequally to try and make them equal, and that is wrong. Like, let's stop. So, you know, I'm all for college students voting here if you live here, if you're a resident of the state, and if you're not, you are not disenfranchised.
You can vote where
you can vote where you are a resident.
I mean, if the people who worry so much about how difficult and how terrible it would be for for a college student to fill out an absentee ballot, do they also feel it's that hard for the disabled person who votes absentee, or the military guy who's overseas who votes absentee? I mean, there are all sorts of people who vote absentee so that they can properly vote where they're supposed to. College kids shouldn't be treated any different.
No, they shouldn't. So trash.
I did. Look, I brought all sorts of paper. Well, I know I talked about it in the spring because people are. I think part of our community is just confused about what they do with trash. Everybody gets their trash picked up unless you live in an apartment complex, one day a week, and the recycling comes from Pinard, and they pick up your little blue bins, and that's all fine and dandy. I was kind of surprised, did not know this, that landlords of multi-unit properties are required to provide as many receptacles as needed. So there is something in our rules that says you really probably can't put bags of trash out at the curb, because that kind of bothers me, because I'm like, put it in a can. How do you think that bag's going to survive? So then people put out other stuff, not in a can. And half the time that stuff doesn't get picked up. Part of the reason is you can't just put stuff at the curb. That's not how it works. If you have a chair that you would like to have picked up by the city, you have to fill out a form. I mean, I think this system's stupid. You should be able to do this online.
Well, or could they just use Google Maps with pins and have the guy do it as he's driving?
But you have to pay $25. So you can
course you do.
Right. I think you can have 5 items picked up, and then there's a $25, which is cash or check only, and you have to mail it. So I'm thinking, so if I buy a new couch, I know what to do, but if I buy a new couch, you put what are you doing with the old one? They're going to put the new couch in the, the average person's thinking, well, I'll put it out with my trash, and then the trash people don't pick it up, and then it gets rained on, and then you start to wonder, why isn't it that couch getting picked up, or that mattress getting picked up, or that shelf getting picked up? And I think I might start taking pictures and posting them on social media just to create a buzz a little bit. Because you only have 2 things you can do. You can go through this whole process of, you can download the form and mail in a check, and then they'll call you and they'll make an appointment, and then you can put your item outside or whatever. Or you could bring it to the drop-off facility up on Dunbarton Road, which has its own set of issues. First, you have to pay for a permit, which I guess I'm not totally against, because if you want to use the drop-off facility. But they're never open. They're open Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 3. So if you work a normal day, forget that. And the first and third Saturday, only the first and third Saturday, 7:30 to 1. So the average person, if you're cleaning up, if you get up on Saturday morning to clean out your garage, or, clean out your basement, or do whatever, now you've got this stuff. I'm going to guess, even if it was the first or third Saturday, it's past 1 o'clock.
Probably, yeah.
So now you've got this pile that you don't know what to do with.
Right.
Similarly, we had a big cleanup on Varney and Mass Road over the weekend, which went really, really well. And I decided to tackle, which I will think twice about it again. The sidewalk across from my house, which doesn't have a house. There's no house there.
Right.
It drops off and goes down to the Piscataqua River. You know, and there's always leaves and stuff along the edge. So I get out there with my shovel and I start scraping it up and I'm going to put it into lawn bags. Well, Dan and I spent probably 4 hours on Saturday and probably another 3 hours on Sunday. And Dan is so sore, he can't, like, his fingers don't move. Because we were pulling up, like, there's a tree this big on the sidewalk. And all the dirt, what looks like just light dirt, is full of roots. And you start pulling the roots out and you find plastic bottles. And it's bizarre.
I know.
35 lawn bags
wow.
of debris, of dirt and leaves and sticks and stuff. Not really all that much litter, mostly just
vegetation.
I didn't do it all the way, the whole area, because I
started
started here. But, I mean, it's crazy. I'm like, how does a sidewalk get that overwhelmed with debris? Because, obviously, nobody's ever cleaned it.
Yeah.
It was blocking the sidewalk. It was an eyesore for the neighborhood. I don't know what I want the city to do. We can't have sidewalk police, you know. But if I did contact the alderman, and the alderman is having Pinard Waste come and pick up supposedly today these bags, which are now all wet.
Right.
So we'll see how that goes. But if somebody puts stuff, you know, like, even if people take it upon themselves, will the city come pick that stuff up? Because, you know, there's rules.
And also, you know, or at least maybe for free. So
right.
We're giving our labor.
I'm not going to pay to have this stuff brought
right.
to the dump. No way. I'm not giving another 4 hours and it would take me 4 trips to the dump.
Right.
But, you know, I know you can use the app to identify things that aren't, like, if your trash isn't picked up and potholes and stuff. But, you know, what do we do when that mattress is sitting in front of an apartment building week after week after week after week? There is a fine process. It says that there's a first offense is like $200. But we obviously don't do that. The same thing with graffiti. I think the aldermen are taking up increasing that fine, which, you know, as much as I don't want to fine people for stuff, I'm okay with it, because stop graffitiing everything. The fine right now is $50.
Well, yeah, but they want to put it up to something ridiculous, right?
But maybe it'll be an incentive to not.
But it won't be in the same way that, you know, we hear the arguments, let's say, on the death penalty repeal, right? And people don't want them to be repealed because of the Michael Briggs guy, right? And I'm like, but no one who's committing crimes, I can 100% assure you, there is not one graffiti artist in New Hampshire who's like, well, it used to be a $50 fine, but now that it's $1,000, I'm not going to do it. They don't know, they don't care. But what happens is, if they get caught, now they're like, well, I don't have $1,000,
right?
So we're going to put you in prison for a while, where you're going to meet like real drug dealers and real criminals.
Dan
and then
said the same thing. He goes, well, what are you going to do? They're not going to have the money to pay. And I said, well, I don't want to see anybody put in jail. You know, I don't think you should go to jail for graffiti. But that $1,000 fine, I don't care if you pay it $1 a week for the rest of your life. Like, I just think it's the principle of the matter. You have caused damage. Fines are, you know, I don't want to say, oh, you have to pay this $1,000 in 30 days or you go to jail. That's absurd.
So here's an idea I had, because I actually, my fence on my property gets graffitied by the school kids, right? So the back fence is kind of a mess, and I find it annoying. And I once watched a documentary of this like cool hip hop artist guy who used to be a graffiti artist, and then he said a really telling
thing. They won't paint over each other's stuff, will
No,
they?
so he said, you're a graffiti artist and you want to do it until you own property.
Yeah.
Then you suddenly realize,
oh my God,
this is actually not like a cool thing to do. So the question becomes, and there are places that they do this, is can we create a canvas?
Well, I thought the same thing. Like, especially along the highway. We got the stretch near the mall. It's always covered. And I thought the same thing. I was down at Casey's Rib Shack the other day, and he paid a graffiti guy who did a SketchUp to paint on the side of his barn, you know, and it looks really good. It's very nice, everything. And I said, you know, if we had a contest or whatever, and that wall was actually painted with good-looking graffiti. I mean, it might not be pleasant to everybody, but I'd rather have that than B-dub, B-dub, B-dub everywhere. I wonder if the kids wouldn't.
Right.
I don't think people would paint over it.
No, and the thing is, or maybe you have it in cycles. So there was Manchester Connects, right?
Yeah,
was sort of getting together, and I went into meetings, and they had some cool ideas, and there was an outside firm that was doing these. Showing us, the manifestation of what it could look like here. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is all cool. The question, of course, being, who pays for this? Right. And no one wanted to answer that question. Right. And that's an important question. But that space down on Granite and Commercial, sort of across from the Mill buildings and WMUR, right? Circle. There's that weird, like...
It was supposed to be a park, and it's just this strange
and it kind of leans down a little bit. Yeah. And I was like, okay, why don't we... Like, we could do something. So one idea was someone said, why don't we, like, have MHT, kind of like LAX. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that could be cool.
Like they have over in Bedford at the new market in Maine.
But then I was like, what if we got, like, old shipping containers and we built the MHT, and then we let people, that's like where you go to graffiti stuff. Yeah. So it's constantly colored and changing and whatever.
And as long as there's no profanity, it gets left alone.
And you so create an opportunity that's an actual artistic outlet that people might, so instead of like just taking the criminality, take the good part of that, which is the artistic outlet, and be like, but let's teach you about property rights. Right. You can't do that to other people's stuff. Right. That is wrong, rude, and criminal.
I mean, it's terrible when you, like on, I don't know if it's Granite or Conant, there's always this one garage that always gets spray painted. And I always feel bad because I think that's probably some little old person who lives there.
Right.
And they get,
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, there are properties on the west side that I know. I mean,
repetitively
that I've scrubbed, because you're just like, okay, I don't want this to look like this. No. I mean, I actually considered grading the
that would be awesome
on the back of my fence at least, to be like, sorry, this is not good enough. You guys need
to step it up and make it prettier than this.
Right.
You can paint here as long as it looks okay.
Right. So I'm just saying, there's always an opportunity instead of just saying, no, you can't do this. Right. It's like, well, what can we harness, or how can we figure out a better way?
Right. I don't disagree. And it's funny because I was having the same thing, and I don't want to, like I said, nobody should go to jail for graffiti.
Yes.
And don't graffiti my house because it won't end well for you. So let's see. So what else? I'm trying to think.
Oh, and I wanted to mention also on the trash thing, because I saw your post on social media, right? And you sort of started with, I'm not posting this to get accolades or, what. And it really struck me because I had written an essay recently about humble bragging, right? Yeah. So the sort of idea of if you do something that you're proud of, you should own it, and you should be able to. I don't know when we moved into this model.
It's not okay to say, hey, I did this good thing.
Right. And that's wrong to me, and I want people to genuinely like step up and do good things, and then
encourage others to do good
credit
things.
For it and encourage others. But part of how you encourage others is by leading by example, right? So going out there and doing it. I can't just tell people, hey, we should clean up the west side.
I agree. And
you got to go out and do it yourself.
I mean, half of the time, we did get a lot. It is nice, we were out there I was out there for quite a while. A lot of people driving by wondering, like, what's going on? Not sure what to make of it. And other people rolling down their windows and saying thank you, or it looks great, and whatever. And, half of me at different points were like, well, I really would rather have help than a thank you, but I'll take the thank you. But I did, when I posted, I did want to try to encourage other people, because I realized if I had been living in this house all these years and had been trimming those weeds, okay, it's 15 minutes out of my summer, cutting those weeds, those awful vines, if you just cut back on your street, when you see a weed growing out of the curb, just cut it down. Because 5 years from now, that little one snip is now a stem like this that you can no longer control and you can't cut down. And you, as you drive along the streets, you see these things and you're like, how did that get over there?
Are you saying vines are like taxes?
They're like taxes. They grow and they become very, very unmanageable. They're hard to get rid of. Once they're established, you can't get rid of them. So if you're anti-tax, you should be anti-weed. Not that weed, the growing weeds, the garden weeds. I know they are doing. I felt bad because I think there's other cleanups that I missed, but I know they're doing one this coming Saturday, the 18th at. I didn't know this was what it was called, Jutras Notre Dame Park, which is right across from St. Mary's Bank. it's a little memorial park in front of that like senior tower, and
Right.
I knew volunteers went every year and cleaned it up, so they're doing that this Saturday morning, because Memorial Day's coming up, and
And they actually they do the planters
Yeah.
with the pretty flowers.
Yeah.
It's very
I
sweet.
I thought, I drove by. Now I'm very conscious.
Right.
I came across Granite, and I was like, there was no debris in the street, which was weird, and nothing on Elm Street. I did see the little leaf blower guy out there. The plants in the middle of Granite could use a little love, but I'm hoping that that's just because it's early, or snowing.
Or they could time it like and no disrespect to our former mayor, but I did notice
it'll
that
conveniently
that it'll happen
in
all
like
the-
October.
Yeah, right before the mayoral
But, when
elections,
you
you'll
drive
suddenly
it-
see a lot of action.
Now I look at places that I'm like, that should be the next target, and this should be the next target, and maybe we could get neighbors to start stepping up and thinking about it, and I don't know. If we want our city to be a better place, we have to step up and try to make it a better place.
And we should acknowledge and accept that human action is important, and when you do good things, you should take credit for it.
And there's nothing wrong with feeling good about it.
No. And honestly, that feeling is what we should be striving for, right? I mean,
instead of being negative all the time, because people, I was kind of a little put off, actually, because one of the state representatives in my ward posted something in a chat group over in Ward 10 and said, these are the things they voted on, but she was very vague about it, and I know how this works in politics. You say, look, we did these great things, but if you don't even tell people what bills you're talking about, it's really misleading. And I asked, well, what bills are you talking about? And right away she said to me, why are you always so negative? And I thought, I didn't know that asking a question was now considered negative.
Right.
I'm sorry, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to challenge your elected officials to what they're doing supposedly on your behalf. And I did think about that more than once as I was cleaning Varney Street, about how negative of a person I must be that I'm out there 2 days in a row cleaning up Varney Street. I don't remember seeing her cleaning up Varney Street, just saying. Anyways, what else? Seems like there's something else coming up. Memorial Day's in a couple weeks. In case you don't know it, if you move to a new neighborhood, we only have 1 minute. It said the American Legion or the VFW or whatever does go around to all the little parks and do the taps.
Oh,
so there is like gunshot fire. First time I lived on Parker Street, I was like, what is going on? Why is there a parade in my backyard? And why are there guns? It's just Memorial Day, so keep that in mind. They're saying we have to wrap it up, so I think Carla and I are going to go grab a cup of coffee, maybe go to Cafe Lorraine. Want to go to Cafe Lorraine?
Sounds
and
great.
Every week we're going to take in a different cup of coffee. So until next week, that's all we've got. If you got anything you want to suggest, you have any questions, reach out to us at ManchTalk@gmail.com, and one of us will get back to you. Otherwise, fingers crossed that this bad weather goes away and we finally get moving on with the sunshine again.
That'll be nice.
See you next week. Bye.
Cheers.